Everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes to start until somebody shows up. Hopefully somebody will. Alrighty, well, I'm just going to get started in that case. I'm Ben Scholler. This is the second session of my Introduction to Computer Science course. We'll be learning Python, some of the basics, and making a snake game like the old retro Snake game back in 70s or 80s, a long time ago. And that'll be the final project. So I'll go ahead and present. So you may notice something is a little different. I am using Linux, which is the operating system I use most of the time. I don't really like using Windows that much. It's just not as natural of an experience for me, I guess, as it is for others. And Linux is meant more for developers, so it has a lot of tools in it that I like using. Anyway, that's all I'll talk about that. So today we'll be learning some basics of Python, and I touched on, I believe, printing last time. Just gave a quick example of printing "Hello World," which is a test program a lot of programmers will write in the language that they're trying to learn, because it's a good place to start and just sort of get a feel for what it looks like, because in a lot of languages it's a lot more complicated. But with Python it's quite simple, because Python is a fairly basic language and doesn't have a lot of frou-frou kind of stuff to it. It's, bare bones, I guess. I shouldn't say bare bones, because it is capable of stuff, but it's simpler. So printing text, I'm just gonna quickly go over this again. You can just print "Hello World" by using this print here. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but use this print keyword type thing here, and then you use double quotes around the text you want to print out. And text in all programming languages really is called a string, and it's just a string of keyboard characters. That's all that stands for, and you shouldn't be concerned if you see string, because it's a basic concept, and all it means is text. So basically it's a text, not a number, and that's the important thing, and we'll go over that more a little later in the session. Anyway, so you can print "Hello World," and I've written up a couple demonstrations here to show you guys. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to terminal here. And terminal is, you guys are using idle, and that's Python's GUI, but it doesn't work as well on Linux. But I'll show you what you would do, the equivalent of the terminal commands that I'll be using. So I've written a few, and this is just listing out the files in the directory that I'm in. So I wrote an input one, printing text and variables. So we'll go ahead and run the printing text here. And this is just an example, and then I'll run it, I'll show it to you, and then run it again. So that's what it says. It says, "Hello world, I am text." So it's fairly basic, not much to it. It's just 2 lines of code, so nothing too scary. So now, Now Emacs is a program that's kind of like idle. It's a text editor. I won't go too much into it, but basically, if you clicked new file, or file and then new, I believe, that gets you to the same place that you would be. So this is the code here, and I see somebody showed up. So hello there. Just so you don't have to rewind, we're learning some of the basics of Python today, and yeah, that's all. I'll go into it. Yeah, you'll see. You haven't missed much. So in this first line here, I'm printing. I say print hello world, and that's the same thing that I showed you in the slides. I don't really want to switch the screens because it's kind of a pain, but and then this is printing I am text. And if you guys remember, when I when I run it, Python, sorry about that sound, printing text, it says hello world, I am text. If I just do this, it shows what's in the file. So print hello world, I am text. See how that matches up? Hello world, I am text. Piece of cake. That's really easy and shouldn't take you too long to catch on to. Now I'll go ahead and switch back to, and leave a comment if sorry, I'm trying to leave a comment or something on the video if you like or if you don't mind the switching of tabs. I was just checking to see that it was working. Next slide. Yes. Okay, variables. So variables are kind of tricky. You can make them tricky if you want to, but you can make them very basic if you want to. And I mean that in the sense that it can either be a simple concept or you can look really deep into it and it can be really complicated. We're going to learn about it as a really simple, because that's the easy way, and that's almost always the best way to do things, is a simple way. And you guys will learn that if you do really any project with programming. The fewer lines of code that you have and the simpler those lines are, the better your program will be and the more reliable, generally, that it will be. So we can define variables just by stating the name of the variable, and that can be any combination of keyboard characters except for a number. And there's there's 20 or 30 words you can't use because Python uses those, like print. You can't make that a keyboard character, or sorry, a variable name, because print means print and it's a command in Python. So that doesn't work. But almost anything you can think of will go. And when you're naming variables, it really helps to come up with a name and use a name that makes sense. This is kind of a bad example of that, but you don't want to just randomly name things combinations of, you smacking your hands on the keyboard. You want something that makes sense and tells you what is stored in the variable. So if you guys are wondering what a variable is, it's a place in memory, or RAM, and some of you guys will have heard of what RAM is. If you're into computers at all, it's a little card in your computer, and it basically stores variables temporarily that programs need to run. And then once the program is done running, they get deleted. Anyway, so you say W equals 0.0. That's one type, and I call it a double. There's also a float. There are two names for pretty much the same thing. If you get more in depth with computer science and stuff, that's what I was talking about with the complicated variable type thing. Floats and doubles will have different meanings, but for general stuff, floats and doubles are the same. But with Python, you don't actually have to define the type of a variable. You can just say, this is what it is. and it will figure that out automatically. So I can say w equals 0.0, and that will make it a float or a double, and it's equal to 0.0. I can say x equals 0, and that is an int or an integer. Int is spelled int. But really, you won't have to use those keyword type variable types in Python, because it does all of this behind the scenes for you, which is really nice. But sometimes you want that kind of customization, and it helps. But for your guys' purposes, it shouldn't make too much of a difference. Anyway, x equals 0. So that is an int, as I said. And that means x is storing the value of 0. Now y equals empty quotes. Actually, I'm going to change that so it makes more sense. Here we go. So y equals hello world. And inside double quotes, you almost always put strings. And that's just where strings go. And that's how Python knows that it is a string, by the double quotes. So by putting that there, Python knows, okay, y is a string. So that's basically all there is to that. I'll have an example here in a few more slides, but there's a few more slides that I need to cover before I can show you it, because it encompasses a few more different things. Doing math, it might freak you out a little bit, but it's really easy. You just do 5 plus 5. There's 4 operators. There's a plus sign, minus sign, asterisk for multiplication, and you've probably used that before. And then a forward slash, I believe. The slash you use most often for division. And then you probably haven't seen this weird percent sign. You're thinking 5% 5? Huh? What that is a modulus. Usually called a mod, M-O-D for short, and it finds the remainder of a division. So in this case, 5 divided by 5 is 1 with a remainder of 0, because that's a clean division. There's nothing else to it. But if I did, say, 6 divided by 5, or 6 mod 5, it would do 6 divided by 5 and say, okay, I can get 1 out of that, but then what's left? 1 is left. So the product of 5 mod 5, or 6 mod 5, sorry, would be 1. And once again, that can get a lot more complicated, and there's a lot of uses for it, actually. So I would encourage you to hang on to that knowledge and try to use it if you can, but don't try to jam it in every program you write, because there's certain applications where it's useful, and there's certain times where it's not. Anyway, we'll go on to the next slide. And guys, feel free to post comments if you have questions or you want me to explain something in more detail, because I would be more than happy to. I will be more than happy to do that. I'm sorry. Yep, Owen posted something. Hi, Owen. So we'll go on to the next slide. str. Now, this is sort of a combination of numbers and printing. So the print method doesn't actually know how to use numbers, or the print the print thing. When you say print, it doesn't know how to use numbers and how to print them out. So you have to help it along a little bit. So you can use this nice handy little thing called str, which stands for string, and you'll see that short name for it, I guess. I'm a little tired today, so I'm kind of fizzled out. Anyway, str stands for string, and you'll see that abbreviation a lot of places. But anyway, to turn a number into a string, so I have pi, which is a variable, equal to 3.14, which, as you all know, is pi. And if you didn't know that, you probably shouldn't be taking this class. Anyway, pi is pi is equal to 3.14. And if we were to put pi if we were to say print, and then in double quotes, say pi equals, and that's just printing out the string pi equals, then we have a space after the equals, so there's room to put the number, and then the str method, which it's actually called a function, but you'll hear it called both things, a function or a method. And functions and methods are called with parentheses, and then you put the parameters, the things you want to pass into it. And we'll go over those in a lot more depth later, but I don't really want to bother with it because it's a more advanced topic. So basically all you need to know is you put str and then in parentheses the variable or the number. So if I didn't want to put pi there, like the variable, I could put 3.14 inside of the str function, and that would do the same thing in this case. But a lot of the times you'll be using user input, and you have the user input a number and then you want to print it out or something, and that's not always the same. So yeah, so this will print out pi equals 3.14. And you see that plus? We'll talk about that I'll just go ahead to that slide. So concatenation, that's a long word. It's basically putting things together, building them up, I guess, kind of like Legos. Sideways Legos, though. Anyway, in this instance, we have two variables, x and y. X is equal to hello, with no spaces or anything, and y is equal to world, with no spaces. And if we want to print those both out in the same print function call thing, or print keyword, we have to concatenate. And it's a long word, and it's really simple. All you have to do is put a plus in between it. That's all there is to it. X plus a space, and there's a space in between the double quotes, which is just a space like the space bar, plus y, and that will print out hello world. So now that we've gone over str number, the str function, and concatenation, we are ready for the next example type thing. I will switch over to Google Hangouts. It's kind of wonky. Sorry, it's kind of random. Anyway, we will use the variables program here, and this is the example I wrote as an example to show you guys some variables. So I'll show you what it looks like first. Oh no, I run it first. Sorry. Python, and all that Python program is doing is just running the program that's inside the file. So Python variables.py, we'll run that, and that says Ben Scholler is 17 years old, and her favorite number is 3.14. And I'll show you how I accomplish that here. Sorry for that sound. So I have three variables in this program: fav number, and usually when you're naming variables, you'll use camel case, in which the first letter of the variable is not capitalized, and then every preceding word will be capitalized. So I have fav number, and number is capitalized. And that's something you'll just catch on to and use everywhere because it's so ingrained in your head after you do it for long enough. Anyway, I have a double or a float here, whatever you want to call it, 3.14, and it is the fav number. And I have age, and age is equal to 17, and the name is equal to Ben Scholler, and this is a string, and this is an int. So right here I'm saying print name plus and is with spaces around it because When you say plus, that just adds them right onto each other. It doesn't put spaces there or anything for you. So you have to add that manually. And then str, so it's taking age and turning it into a string so the print keyword can understand it. And plus, years old, blah, blah, blah. Plus, and notice that has spaces around it. And then str, fave number. So it's turning the fave number variable into a string. So the print keyword can understand it. And then I have a plus on the end. Or, sorry, a period. That's English, right? Anyway, I'll go ahead and show that to you one more time. Just clear it up. So it says Ben Scholler is 17 years old. And her favorite number is 3.14. So fave number here is at the end. Okay, see right there. That's where the 3.14 on the end comes from. And then just one second. Hey, if you guys are watching this, go ahead and comment if you can actually see anything or if it just says, please stand by. Okay? Because I might have screwed something up, but I'm not sure. So when you hear this, just comment if you can see it. Thanks. With that, in the hopes that you can see it, and I have age is equal to 17, and that goes right there, and is coming from this str age, which is turning age into a string. Okay, nobody's commented yet. Let me put something in the comments myself. One moment. Oh, never mind. You can see it. Okay, sorry for the false alarm there. If you're curious what I'm doing, I have a separate computer here that I'm watching all the analytics and stuff on. Anyway, sorry I'm all distracted and everything, but Ben Scholler is already a string, so we don't have to change that over to a string with the str function because it already is. So print name, and that's printing Ben Scholler is str age, and then blah, 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 blah is str favorite number, and then a period. So that's all that's doing there. Pretty basic program. I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to the slides, and we have a few more here, and then we'll be done. I'm going to try to make these short because I know that people don't have a lot of attention span when it comes to learning things, especially when they're not terribly interested in them. So we went over that. Now, taking input, this is where it gets exciting. All the other stuff is boring and building up to this, but this is where it gets exciting and we can actually do cool stuff. Anyway, taking input, what input is it's a function just like the str, and you'll say input, and then you'll pass in a string to it. Sorry. You'll say, please enter a number, or you can put whatever you want in there. It literally does not matter at all what you stick inside of there, as long as it's as long as it's a string. And remember, you can change a number to a string using the str function. So that's how you do that. Okay, I've got to change something else. Sorry. Anyway, I say, please enter a number, and input, all it does is print that out. It's basically like calling print and then waiting for somebody to type something in and then hit enter. When you hit enter, it just gathers whatever you typed in and then sticks it in whatever, it spits it out. And then the equal sign basically takes what the function spits out and sticks it in the variable that is before it. So I'm setting x equal to the input. So whatever the user types in to the prompt, please enter a number. And then after that, I say print, you entered, and then I have a colon and a space, and then strx, because we cannot print a number directly. And input will only take in numbers, as far as I understand. I'm sure there's a way around it, but there's an easier way to get around it than going crazy and doing some crazy complex thing. And I'll show you that in the next slide. So input is for use with numbers. So if I'm saying please enter a number, then I want to use input. But if I'm using a string, I want to use the method raw input, like that. And that will always take in a string. So if I typed in a number to please enter a word, it would just read that in as a string, and it would put that number in double quotation marks. Always, 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 always. That's what the raw input function does. And just like the other input function, it takes a string, and you just pass it in, and then it prints it out, waits for you to type in something and hit enter. And then once you hit enter, it passes that through the equal sign, which is the setting operator or something like that, and throws it into the variable that is before it. So in that case, it's x. So right here, we're saying print, you entered, colon, space, just to give it some room, and then plus x. And we do not have to call the str function because it is always a string. Sorry, the phone call. Wish I could make it shut up.
Call from Anderson Share. Calls.
Okay. There we go. Took care of that. Sorry. Anyway, you're saying you entered X, and you're printing out what was entered. Okay, so that's all there is to inputs. We already went over concatenation. And I don't have an example for comments, but it's really simple. And I mean really simple. Basically, a comment, you put a hashtag or pound symbol or number sign, whatever you want to call it. I just call them hashtags because I'm just a teenager, I guess. But anyway, you say hashtag, and then you can put a comment. And that's anything you want. It can be a number, whatever. You can literally put anything there. Put code in there, but when the program is run, the Python will just completely ignore anything, any line that starts with a hashtag, and treat it like it doesn't even exist. So basically what that allows you to do is put documentation. So if you have a lot of confusing code or something, which I don't recommend doing, but if you have to have it there, you should put comments around it. And all that involves is a hashtag and then text or numbers or whatever you want. Anything you can type in the keyboard can go after the hashtag. And Python will not care at all. And then after that, I just say print, I do something, just to show that that is not a comment. Now I'll actually print something. And I can write up a quick example. Actually, I'll just copy and paste this into a new file here and show you, just in case you want to see it, because I know I always like seeing examples, and it helps me. So if you guys like, sorry, this is being real weird. If you guys like the examples, tell me, and I'll try to do more or less, depending on what feedback you guys give me. Anyway, so I'll go ahead and show you the input program that I wrote. And this asked me for my favorite number. So I'm going to say 5. 5.1. I don't know. Age, I am 17. My name is Ben Scholler. Hit enter, and it says Ben Scholler is 17 years old, and his or her favorite number is 5.1. And this looks an awful lot like the program for variables. That's because I just copied and pasted the code and then changed it a little bit. So instead of just always setting the variables to 3.14, 17, and Ben Scholler, respectively, it sets them to whatever I type in. Now, for this, I'm using the input method, and I'll just go ahead and show you, for favorite number and age, because those are always numbers. Here. So favorite number, I'm using input, and then I'm asking for the favorite number. It's colon space space. So it gives you a little room to type after the prompt. And then I say age, colon space space, and that's using the input function. And if I'm saying method or function, they're quite literally the exact same thing. So I'll use them interchangeably probably. So just ignore that. Think of it either way you want. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, input, you pass in the string, age, and it shoots out age. Or it puts the result in age. And fave number and age are always going to be numbers. Now, it doesn't matter that fave number is a decimal, because if you noticed, I typed in a decimal there for a fave number. So I can go ahead and say 1 without a decimal, and it will still work the same. And I can put a decimal in here. And then just put that. So it'll work just the same. And that period on the end is just from the period that I put for English sake. Here's the program again. And name, that will always be a string, because you're never going to have a number for a name. At least I don't think you can. I might look into the laws for that. But anyway. Sorry, you have the raw input, and you're passing in a string, and that will always put out a string. And if I did put in a number for that, it would work just fine, because the number would be inside of a string. And strings can hold numbers, and that's how, because of that, that's how we can, that's how we're able to do this and print out numbers at all. Because the string, when you call that, what comes out of it, the product of the function is a string containing the number that you passed in. It's kind of like one of those input-output boxes that we all did in 3rd grade math, and you pass a number in, and then another number comes out. It's basically what that's doing, but instead of using always numbers, you can use different variables and multiple variables, and it's basically like input-output boxes on steroids. And that's all functions are. But once again, we'll get into that more later in a different session. And then right here, you're printing the name, which is always a string, so you don't have to worry about the str function. Since I'm using the input method for age, I have to use the str function, because that's a number. And then the same thing for fave number. I have to use str because I'm only using the input, not the raw input method. And looks like I'm going to have to finish this up before too long, because my battery's about dead. Anyway, I'll go ahead and run it one more time just so you guys can see it. Oh dear. I'm sorry, it's loud. Python. It's really loud, actually. Input.py. So I'm going to put in favorite number. Just do that. Why not? Age, I'm really old, oldest man alive. Name, old dude. And if you guys take a guess, this will print out. I'm going to go ahead and guess it'll say old dude is 10,000 years old, and his or her favorite number is went to the blah, 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 blah. Let's see if I'm right. Woohoo! Yay. So that's what it said. Oh, and this is kind of interesting. I'm not really sure why this is, but it looks like it lost some precision here on the end. It rounded the 4 up to a 5. I'll have to look into that, but it shouldn't be too much of a trouble for you guys. But just know if you're doing it like this and you're inputting, I'm not sure where that happened, if the variable can't contain more than 4 decimals worth of precision, or whether the input method only spits out 4 decimals worth of precision. Not sure why that is, but I'll look into it. But you really shouldn't have to worry about using numbers that are that precise. And if you are, probably shouldn't be using Python, because most likely you're doing something that needs a lot of efficiency, and Python isn't very efficient. It's this very slow language compared to others, but that's okay because we're not doing anything that requires crazy speed. So that's what there is for that, and I'll go ahead and paste in that. So this is the comment, and comments in my editor appear in red. I have no idea what they are in idle, because I really don't use idle that much. Anyway, I do nothing is a comment, and then print I do something. If you guys want to take a guess what this will do, I'm going to go ahead and say it'll print I do something. Let's see, comments. And it did not like that. I do not know. 1 second. I have no idea what I've done. Let me just type it. I don't know if it was a copy and paste type thing. And I like to put a space after the hashtag just to sort of space things out, because it's a little easier to read, but you don't have to. So as I said earlier, once you have the hashtag there, nothing that goes on the line matters. And a lot of the times people will use comments to comment out a chunk of code, and if they're testing it, or if they have a bug or something in their code, they'll comment something out to see if it can get to a certain point without breaking or something like that. Anyway, I'll just print out hello world. This should work. I'm not sure why that broke. Kind of a weird freak accident. Python. One of these days I'll learn how to spell it. Comments. There we go. Hello world. And as you can see, that I do nothing comments did literally nothing. So that's about all I have for this lesson. And if you guys have questions, like always, I'll wait a few more minutes or so. And I'm going to talk for a second about the course itself, because I have made a few changes. I'll just switch over to this so you have something to look at, because some people just like looking at things, and I can sympathize with that. Anyway, this next week, I will be away from technology and completely gone for the whole week. And if you guys have questions, I will not be able to answer them until Saturday afternoon when I get back. So I will send out an email with one of my friends' emails in it, who you can send your questions to. And he's done Python for longer than me, actually. He's quite good, and any questions you'll have, he'll be able to answer. least for the next week. After that, I'll be able to take over and resume the role of question answer. But I don't want to say his email on this YouTube event because anybody has access to that, and that just wouldn't be very fair to him. So I'll send that out in an email to the people in the class. Anyway, so I'll put his contact info in an email and send it out right after this. Also, the labs that I had, I'll just be honest, I got 3 back out of, I think, 45. So for the 3 of you, good job. And for the other 42 of you, I don't blame you too much. I don't like doing homework like that, especially in the summer. So for that reason, I'm taking the labs out. So there's no required anything, and there's not going to be a grade at the end of the course. I hope you guys weren't looking forward to that too much, but that's just a lot more work for me to do. And I'm already kind of stretched on time this summer. So I don't have a lot of time to grade stuff. Once again, if you guys have questions, please do ask them, because, yeah, this is your chance. Anyway, I'm going to be gone, so ask him questions. And labs. Yes, once again, we will not be doing labs anymore because they're a pain and nobody likes them and nobody does them apparently. So I'm not going to bother, but I would encourage you guys to practice this stuff because it will help you, and you will be glad that you did practice it, because it's a cool thing to know how to do. It really is. And sorry. And I'd encourage you guys to play around with it, experiment, maybe learn some new stuff. I don't know. If you guys have a cool program that you write or something you want to show me, email it to me. I'll take a look at it. Hopefully get back to you guys. Yeah, so there's nothing assigned, but as always, have fun with it. It's not meant to just sit there on a YouTube video. It's meant to be used. That's what Python's for. And really all programming languages. Anyway, no labs anymore. And send your questions to him. Him is will be defined in the email for privacy's sake. And that's all. Thank you guys for coming, who did come. And I hope you guys watch it later. So with that, good night, I guess. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.